back to Inside Eastern Utah. I am Scotty Draper, and we are here today with Carbon County Commissioner Jake Mellor. We've been talking all about economic development in the area and what some of the plans are. A recent meeting that Jake attended, as well with others from the area with the governor. Some exciting things came from that, and we've spoke a bit about business. We want all kinds of business here, but there's other things that play into economic development as well. And one of those things are roadways.
Yes, definitely.
Specifically Highway 6.
Right.
So talk to us a bit about Highway 6 and how that plays into the economic development plan.
For sure. Now, of course, this meeting was not so much what the state can do for us. It was more positioned, you know, this is what Carbon County is doing, and how can we partner with the state to make it happen?
Yes.
And so with the governor and with all of his staff that was there and with everybody else in the room, we talked about Highway 6. We talked about a lot of these companies, even the Walmart Distribution Center years ago, we were on their top 10 list.
Really?
You know, and it ended up going to Hurricane.
Yes.
We were on their top 10 list, but we didn't make it to the top 4. Between the top 10 and the top 4, we got cut out because there's not 4 lanes going in all directions. Statistically, if the road has a narrow spot and it narrows down to just one passing lane on each side, then, you know, if there's an accident, it's going to back up traffic.
Yes.
Whereas,
which is going to cause delays.
Whereas if there's 4 lanes, the likelihood of it not at least allowing through traffic a little bit if there's an accident, it's a little bit more realistic that they can still have some through traffic and not completely stop traffic. Anyway, so for warehousing, distribution centers, for manufacturing, for logistical concerns, a 4-lane freeway would really help us out here locally, getting a lot of those manufacturing jobs and a lot of those other warehousing and trucking items. We already have a lot of trucking here in the area, a lot of trucks on the road. One other thing that we positioned to really help the governor understand that this would also be a solution to some of their problems. In his State of the State address that he gave, he talked about housing and how there would soon be a housing problem, and there already is in Utah County and in Salt Lake and in other areas. The cost of living is just so high, and it's only going to get worse. It might even double or triple in the next few years.
Goodness.
And so opening up the corridor to eastern Utah could be a potential solution to part of that problem. Meaning, if the roads were more easily travelable, if we could widen it out and make it more accessible, less dangerous, and you know, if we could turn it into a freeway, then we even take the responsibility of maintenance and everything off of the shoulders of the state. But if we could turn it into an interstate, Highway 6, then we would have a lot more through traffic, and people would commute more easily. There'd be more public transportation, and there'd be a lot more workers that live here locally. And it would open up a lot of opportunities for people that live in Utah County to also come here to work.
Of course. But this is obviously a very big undertaking and a very costly one. What would the process even look like? How would you guys start to make that a reality?
So the process starts with Carlos. And Carlos is the fellow who's with UDOT, and he's in charge of all the projects. And he's the one that goes to the governor and says, you know, this is what we can and can't do, type of a thing. So reaching out to him and having a first meeting there, and Senator Hinkins is very pivotal in helping us start those conversations. So we're looking forward to getting those underway. And again, our meeting with the governor was only a couple weeks ago. So this is the process we're going through. First, meeting with the very top of UDOT here in the state, and then finding out what the process is after that. We did receive the governor's blessing, so to speak, in figuring out pursuing the item and figuring out what the next steps would be. So that's a very exciting conversation that could produce fruit in so many ways.
Of course, and I know a lot of people from here would be very happy if that opened up. And so it would be 4 lanes from start to finish, from Spanish Fork to Helper. We would be looking at 4 lanes, is that right?
Spanish Fork all the way down to, you know, I-70.
Oh, so you'd go all the way down. That would obviously take quite a few years and quite a lot of work, but it could open a lot of opportunities.
It really would. I mean, there's a few obstacles. Part of the road would actually have to be diverted in a different direction and other things like that. But, you know, there's projects like this all over the place. In fact, Highway 6 is even on a national list of roads to renovate. We're number 53 on this national list. So even though we're just a highway, we're we are getting some notice nationally, and to become an interstate maybe isn't as difficult as as it's been before.
And how do they figure that list? Is it versus, do they compare how much traffic, how the quality of the road, what sort of things do they look at on that list?
You know, that's a good question.
It's a good question, but we're on it and we should take advantage of it, right?
Exactly.
And so we're talking about that and those opportunities for trained workforce. Let's speak a bit more to that trained workforce. Obviously, it'd be really great for people to be coming from up north or from other areas to work in our area. That would benefit us. But we also want to train this workforce. And I know that is one of the key things that is being focused on. So let's touch on that a bit more.
Yes. So we do have our business incubators. We have the Small Business Development Center. We have a lot of resources that we've had for a long time here. We're getting additional and new resources. We have the folks going into the JCPenney building and the consortium of businesses that they're going to be focused on. A lot of those businesses will also be, in a sense, a type of an incubator, helping a lot of our local workforce meet the gap between the training that they're missing and the employment opportunities that they'd otherwise have. And so they're connecting the employers with training programs and making sure that they get the proper input, and then they're getting the employees hired on, trained, facilitated, and then eventually they hand it off to the employers. And so that's a really neat process. They're actually going to be getting Silicon Slopes, which is a nonprofit entity, officed here, which is super exciting because currently Silicon Slopes is just up north. You know, it's a nonprofit entity that specializes in helping companies from Silicon Valley come to Utah, and now we might try to get some of that here, which is super exciting. We also have Park City Angels. A member of the Park City Angels. I don't know if you know who they are, but they
I'm not familiar.
They help funding for small businesses and up and coming emerging businesses. So if somebody's got a great business idea and they just can't get it off the ground on their own, they can step in and provide management help. They can step in and provide funding help. They can provide mentoring. They're the people that have the funding and the money that really put their arm around a business owner and help them become successful.
And help them through that process. That is fantastic.
Yep. And we've got a lot of exciting things coming on. We may be having a very large conference here in the summertime, June, July. And we may have over 1,000 attendees coming to listen to speakers in the Price City Auditorium and all the county buildings. And this is a collaborative effort between us and the cities to try and make sure that everybody's involved and that we can have the proper venues for a lot of these folks from out of town. And there might be some individuals from Shark Tank. Did I say Shark Tank?
Yes.
I mean, you know, basically where people here locally can present their ideas and their products and be judged and possibly receive some funding.
Wow.
You know, so
and that's this summer.
Yes, that is this summer. And you know, just an FYI on the JCPenney building, we're looking at the renovation there being completed sometime around the end of summer, around August.
So exciting things coming. And I think through this whole conversation, something that has really stuck out in my mind is diversity. We are not just focusing on one thing here. I mean, as great as it would be if coal could provide everything for our economy like it has in the past, it fluctuates, and unfortunately we never know exactly how it's going to end up. So I think that this diversification has been key in this plan. You
know, in this plan, Central is inviting more manufacturing to our area. And some of the obstacles, of course, are the highway and a number of other things. That doesn't mean we can't still have it even without the highway. We have a number of manufacturing companies here, Dustless Technologies and Intermountain Electronics and a lot of others. We can do more though, if we can overcome some of these obstacles and get the state's assistance in doing so.
Yes, we are actually located kind of in a great area. We're very close, Highway 6 right here, I-70 right here. We have the railroad that we can transport. So we really do have some opportunity. It just needs to be fine-tuned a bit.
Compared to a lot of our neighboring counties, we truly are central and have more resources for that type of thing. So, if we could get some medical instrument manufacturing companies here, if we could get, a number of these people that we will be pursuing in the near future. One other thing I wanted to mention is there are some state assistance funds. One of them is called the Industrial Assistance Fund, which has a lot of money in it. And it's already in state statute written for rural Utah, But rural, the term rural has been so abused that it goes everywhere.
Yes.
You know, one thing that I'd like to see in future legislation at the state level is that we revamp the entire wording of the Industrial Assistance Fund to where instead of just rural, which could be 25 counties or could be 16 counties, it depends on whose definition we go
Yes.
by, that it stipulates that priority funding goes to those areas most in need. In fact, I've done some work with a state economist, Mark Nold, with DWS, and found that, you know, there are specific counties that have high unemployment, high job setback, rural density, and just a number of other factors that should represent to the state through this rubrics of, hey, you know, all of these factors that show a declining or worsening economy, where the areas in the state are that need most help. And I'd like the state to recognize that. I'd like the state to, for us to partner with them to revamp a lot of these incentive programs. One, for it to be prioritized to those areas most in need.
Yes.
Two, I think we also should have some type of incentive for people to live here besides the employment opportunities. Frank Peasy once told me that you know, there could be an incentive to help him buy a building, but if he can't fill it with the talent and skilled workforce that he's looking for,
Then
it does him no good.
It doesn't work.
Right. So I think it needs to be a two-pronged approach. We do incentives for businesses, but we also do incentives for the people. The state of Alaska, for rural and economically depressed counties, they send everyone $1,000 during tax season.
Well, I think a lot of people would gladly take $1,000.
It might be a little incentive to help retain some of the talent and also bring in some others. The state of Ohio has an employee tax, so not a state tax, but an employee tax. But for those rural counties that are economically depressed, to motivate businesses and employees to live and work there, they waive that employee tax. And so,
Just a little extra benefit.
what we need in rural Utah, here in Carbon County, is some unique identifier. So when companies are coming to Utah, they can see that in Carbon County there's something different
Something
and
that stands out.
an additional reason to work and live here. And so that's some of the exciting things that we have going on. We also promoted with the governor that, similar to his Mighty Five campaign, possibly we could do a Live Rural campaign. And that's something that the state, if the state put on and put some money towards to a Live Rural campaign, it would help solve some of their housing issues, some of their population issues, and it would help disperse some of the population into the rural areas.
Yes, because that Wasatch Front is getting pretty crowded up there.
Yeah.
We would gladly accept some new blood down here. So it sounds like there are great things going on and definitely a lot of work in the future.
Yes, and
This is just the start.
you know, and today I actually go up to meet with the Governor's Office of Economic Development to discuss with them, and then as soon as I'm done today, tomorrow morning, I fly out to DC to sit on a new steering committee for economic development nationally. And I'm flattered.
Which there has never been a representative from Carbon County, is that correct?
Not on the steering
Not
committee.
on the steering committee.
For economic development and workforce services. And so it's exciting.
Yes.
I'm flattered by the opportunity, and I'm doing it because I think we can bring something from there, from nationally, back here. And it also gives us time to sit down with our national representatives.
Well, I certainly appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule. Sounds like you have a lot on your plate, but we appreciate the work you're doing for Carbon County and the voice you're giving us and representing us. So thank you for your time and giving us this update. I'm sure we'll be touching on many of these projects in the future.
Well, thank you, Scotty.
Okay, and thank you for joining another episode of Inside Eastern Utah. Stick around. More of your favorite programming is coming up on ETV Channel 10.